Sabbath School Quarterly 2021, Fourth Quarter Lesson 12, for Sabbath, December 18. When weakness and wrongs are seen. Memory text, Galatians 5 verses 25 and 26. If we live in the Spirit, let us also walk in the Spirit. Let us not be desirous of vainglory, provoking one another, envying one another. Galatians 5 verses 25 and 26. This Day with God, page 83. We need not be so zealous for our brethren, and in this zeal neglect the work that needs to be done for ourselves. Another's wrong will not make our cases any nearer right. This Day with God, page 83. Suggested readings. Testimonies for the Church, volume 2, pages 50 through 55. 3T, pages 93 and 94. 5T, pages 246 to 248. And 603 to 613. Sunday, December 12. Ourselves and others. Question A. What timeless appeal of Paul echoes down to our day? Galatians 5 verses 25 and 26. If we live in the Spirit, let us also walk in the Spirit. Let us not be desirous of vainglory, provoking one another, envying one another. Galatians 5, verses 25 and 26. E.G. White, 1888 Materials, pages 1374 and 75. Those who are not spiritual often appear to have a zeal that far exceeds the zeal of the true children of God. This is because they are determined that their ways and their plans shall succeed. They say to themselves, I will put the whole force of my being into this plan, and I will work continually until I see it succeed. I will persist until I prevail. But all the religion that a man has is frequently found in his ambitious zeal, which he thinks is after the Christ-like order. Take away this, and nothing is left. They are like the Pharisees who tithed mint and anise and cumin, but neglected the weightier matters of the law, judgment, mercy, and the love of God. E.G. White, 1888 Materials, pages 1374 and 75. Sermons and Talks, volume 1, page 271 and 272. All who would learn of Christ must be emptied of human wisdom. The soul must be cleansed from all vanity and pride, and vacated by all that has held it in prepossession. And Christ must be enthroned in the heart. The constant strife in the soul that results from selfishness and self-sufficiency must be rebuked, and humility and meekness must take the place of our natural self-esteem. Sermons and Talks, volume 1, pages 271 and 272. Monday, December 13. Learning God's Way. Question A. What type of experience do nearly all face at all times? Psalm 69, verse 5, and verses 16 through 19. O God, thou knowest my foolishness, and my sins are not hid from thee. Hear me, O Lord, for thy loving kindness is good. Turn unto me according to the multitude of thy tender mercies, and hide not thy face from thy servant, for I am in trouble. Hear me speedily. Draw nigh unto my soul, and redeem it. Deliver me because of mine enemies. Thou hast known my reproach, and my shame, and my dishonor. Mine adversaries are all before thee. Psalm 69, verses 5 and 16 through 19. Desire of Ages, page 329. Whatever your anxieties and trials, spread out your case before the Lord. Your spirit will be braced for endurance. The way will be opened for you to disentangle yourself from embarrassment and difficulty. The Desire of Ages, page 329. Question B. With that reality in mind, describe how we should proceed with regard to a person who has made a mistake. Galatians 6, verse 1. Brethren, if a man be overtaken in a fault, ye which are spiritual, restore such an one in the spirit of meekness, considering thyself, lest thou also be tempted. Galatians 6, verse 1. Matthew 18, verse 15. Moreover, if thy brother shall trespass against thee, go and tell him his fault between thee and him alone. If he shall hear thee, thou hast gained thy brother. Matthew 18, verse 15. Testimonies for the Church, Volume 2, pages 52 and 53. If you are grieved because your neighbors or friends are doing wrong to their own hurt, if they are overtaken in a fault, follow the Bible rule. Tell him his fault between thee and him alone. Matthew 18, verse 15. As you go to the one you suppose to be in error, see that you speak in a meek and lowly spirit, for the wrath of man worketh not the righteousness of God. The erring can be restored in no other way than in the spirit of meekness, gentleness, and tender love. Be careful in your manner. Avoid anything in look or gesture, word or tone that savors of pride or self-sufficiency. Guard yourself against a word or look that would exalt yourself or place your goodness and righteousness in contrast with their failings. Beware of the most distant approach to disdain, overbearing, or contempt. With care avoid every appearance of anger, and though you use plainness of speech, let there be no reproach, no railing accusation, no token of warmth, but of earnest love. Above all, let there be no shadow of hate or ill will, no bitterness or sourness of expression. Nothing but kindness and gentleness can flow from a heart of love. Yet all these precious fruits need not hinder you from speaking in the most serious, solemn manner, as though angels were directing their eyes upon you, and you were acting in reference to the coming judgment. Bear in mind that the success of reproof depends greatly upon the spirit in which it is given. Do not neglect earnest prayer that you may possess a lowly mind, and that angels of God may go before you to work upon the hearts you are trying to reach, and so soften them by heavenly impressions that your efforts may avail. If any good is accomplished, take no credit to yourself. God alone should be exalted. God alone has done it all. Testimonies for the Church, Volume 2, pages 52 and 53. Tuesday, December 14. The Golden Rule of Speech. Question A. What should help us resist the temptation to tell others about the faults of someone else? Luke 6, verse 31. And as ye would that men should do to you, do ye also to them likewise. Luke 6, verse 31. Proverbs 25, verse 9. Debate thy cause with thy neighbor himself, and discover not a secret to another. Proverbs 25, verse 9. 2T, page 53. You have excused yourself for speaking evil of your brother or sister or neighbor to others before going to him and taking the steps which God has absolutely commanded. You say, "Why, I did not speak to another until I was so burdened that I could not refrain." What burdened you? Was it not a plain neglect of your own duty, of a "Thus saith the Lord"? You were under the guilt of sin because you did not go and tell the offender his fault between you and him alone. If you did not do this, if you disobeyed God, how could you be otherwise than burdened unless your heart was hardened while you were trampling the command of God underfoot, and in your heart hating your brother or neighbor? And what way have you found to unburden yourself? God reproves you for a sin of omission in not telling your brother his fault, and you excuse and comfort yourself by a sin of commission by telling your brother's fault to another person. Is this the right way to purchase ease? By committing sin? Testimonies for the Church, Volume 2, page 53. Question B. By approaching someone with their fault, how might that person react? Proverbs 14, verse 16. A wise man feareth and departeth from evil, but the fool rageth and is confident. Proverbs 14, verse 16. Yet what is your duty regardless of the risk? Ministry of Healing, page 494 and 495. Help those who have erred by telling them of your experiences. Show how, when you made grave mistakes, patience, kindness, and helpfulness on the part of your fellow workers gave you courage and hope. Ministry of Healing, page 494 and 495. 2T, pages 53 and 54. All your efforts to save the erring may be unavailing. They may repay you evil for good. They may be enraged rather than convinced. What if they hear to no good purpose and pursue the evil course they have begun? This will frequently occur. Sometimes the mildest and tenderest reproof will have no good effect. If that case, the blessing you wanted another to receive by pursuing a course of righteousness, ceasing to do evil and learning to do well, will return into your own bosom. If the erring persist in sin, treat them kindly and leave them with your heavenly Father. You have delivered your soul. Their sin no longer rests upon you. You are not now partaker of their sin. 2T, pages 53 and 54. Wednesday, December 15. Humbled by our own frailty. Question A. Why must we overcome the culture of slander? Titus 3, verse 2. To speak evil of no man, to be no brawlers, but gentle, showing all meekness to all men. Titus 3, verse 2. James 4, verse 11. Speak not evil one of another, brethren. He that speaketh evil of his brother and judgeth his brother, speaketh evil of the law and judgeth the law. But if thou judge the law, thou art not a doer of the law, but a judge. James 4, verse 11. Testimonies for the Church, Volume 2, page 54. Speak evil of no man. Hear evil of no man. If there be no hearers, there will be no speakers of evil. If anyone speaks evil in your presence, check him. Refuse to hear him, though his manner be ever so soft and his accents mild. He may profess attachment, and yet throw out covert hints and stab the character in the dark. Resolutely refuse to hear, though the whisperer complains of being burdened till he speak. Burdened indeed, with a cursed secret which separateth very friends. Go, burdened ones, and free yourself from your burden in God's appointed way. First go tell your brother his fault between you and him alone. 2T, page 54. Question B. What happens only if the one at fault refuses to heed? Matthew 18, verses 16 and 17. But if he will not hear thee, then take with thee one or two more, that in the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses every word may be established. And if he shall neglect to hear them, tell it then to the church. But if he neglect to hear the church, let him be as one as the heathen man and a publican. Matthew 18, verses 16 and 17. 2T, page 54. If this fail, next take with you 1 or 2 friends, and tell them in their presence. If these steps fail, then tell it to the church. Not an unbeliever is to be made acquainted with the slightest particular of the matter. Telling it to the church is the last step to be taken. Publish it not to the enemies of our faith. 2T, page 54. Question C. Explain what can either make or break true restoration. Galatians 6, verses 2 and 3. Bear ye one another's burdens, and so fulfill the law of Christ. For if a man think himself to be something when he is nothing, he deceiveth himself. Galatians 6, verses 2 and 3. 6T, pages 398 and 399. Bear in mind that the work of restoring is to be our burden. This work is not to be done in a proud, officious, masterly way. Do not say by your manner, I have the power, and I will use it, and pour out accusations upon the erring one. The work set before us to do for our brethren is not to cast them aside, not to press them into discouragement or despair by saying, you have disappointed me, and I will not try to help you. He who sets himself up as full of wisdom and strength and bears down upon one who is oppressed and distressed and longing for help, manifests the spirit of the Pharisee, and wraps himself about with the robe of his own self-constituted dignity. In his spirit he thanks God that he is not as other men are, and supposes that his course is praiseworthy, and that he is too strong to be tempted. Galatians 6:3 quoted. 6T, pages 398 and 399. Thursday, December 16, Learning Deeper Humility. Question A. How can we avoid spoiling our witness for Christ? Galatians 6, verses 4 and 5. But let every man prove his own work, and then shall he have rejoicing in himself alone, and not in another. For every man shall bear his own burden. Galatians 6, verses 4 and 5. 6T, page 397. One of the greatest curses in our world, and it is seen in the churches and in society everywhere, is the love of supremacy. Men become absorbed in seeking to secure power and popularity. This spirit has manifested itself in the ranks of Sabbath keepers, to our grief and shame. But spiritual success comes only to those who have learned meekness and lowliness in the school of Christ. 6T, page 397. 5T, pages 247 and 248. He who considers himself superior in judgment and experience to his brethren and despises their counsel and admonition evinces that he is in a dangerous delusion. The heart is deceitful. He should test his character and life by the Bible standard. Every man must at last stand or fall for himself, not according to the opinion of the party that sustains or opposes him, not according to the judgment of any man, but according to his real character in the sight of God. 5T, pages 247 and 248. Question B. How can our influence bring real hope to others? Galatians 6, verses 6 through 10. Let him that is taught in the word communicate unto him that teacheth in all good things. Be not deceived, God is not mocked. For whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap. For he that soweth to his flesh shall of the flesh reap corruption, but he that soweth to the Spirit shall of the Spirit reap life everlasting. And let us not be weary in well-doing, for in due season we shall reap if we faint not. As we have therefore opportunity, let us do good unto all men, especially unto them who are of the household of faith. Galatians 6, verses 6 through 10. Ministry of Healing, page 495. Until the judgment, you will never know the influence of a kind, considerate course toward the inconsistent, the unreasonable, the unworthy. When we meet with ingratitude and betrayal of sacred trust, we are roused to show our contempt or indignation. This the guilty expect. They are prepared for it, but kind forbearance takes them by surprise and often awakens their better impulses and arouses a longing for a nobler life. Ministry of Healing, page 495. Friday, December 17. Personal review questions. Question 1. What characteristic of Lucifer must be uprooted from every Christian? Question 2. Before thinking to correct someone else, what must I first consider? Question 3. Why can't I take credit even if my words appear to help someone? Question 4. At what times may I have been guilty of aiding a culture of slander? Question 5. Why may have the most humbling times in my life been the best for me?